Sign this, please. Wait, what's going on? What my husband casually handed me was a divorce form. What do you mean, what's going on? Just look at this paper. I want a divorce from you. Why all of a sudden? It's not sudden. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Actually, I have a child with the woman I love. What? It was a complete shock. I was so surprised that I couldn't find the words and just stood there. Well, our marriage has been over for a long time, hasn't it? Indeed, our relationship had been strained for some time, but I never imagined he was cheating and had even fathered a child. Wait a minute. I just gave birth to our daughter and got discharged from the hospital. That day, I had just been discharged from the hospital after giving birth. I thought we would live happily ever after with our newborn baby. Why? You've just been discharged from the hospital, so I was hesitant about bringing this up today, but things like this are better done sooner, right? Besides, my girlfriend has been nagging me to hurry up and divorce, he said with a grin. I could deeply feel that in the future he envisioned, there was no place for me and our child. Tears welled up in my eyes due to his utmost betrayal. What about? What am I supposed to do now? Thus, I was unilaterally presented with divorce, and we ended up divorcing. 7 years had passed since then. One day, while I was visiting a large shopping mall, I unexpectedly ran into the worst person imaginable. Hey, isn't that Nicole? Long time no see. He was the last person on earth I wanted to encounter. Wow, you've aged. It must have been tough after our divorce, right? Being a single mother is hard, he said, unbelievably, considering he was the one who left me and our child. Suppressing the anger welling up inside, I replied with heavy sarcasm. Thanks to my parents' help, I didn't have any problems without you. Why are you acting tough? Your dad's just a small-town doctor, right? Such parents couldn't have been of any help. Honestly, they must have been totally unreliable. He laughed mockingly. Taking my silence for acquiescence, he began to boast about his own life without waiting for my response. After that, I married a female doctor. You, just a part-timer, and I are worlds apart. My wife is competent, 10 years younger than me, wealthy, and ensures a worry-free life for me. Isn't it great? Sorry for being the only happy one here. He laughed in a very vulgar manner, looking down on me. Oh. Which hospital does your wife work at? Why? Interested? Thompson Hospital. It's a famous general hospital that just opened in this area. Even you, working as a part-time nurse, should have heard of it, right? Thompson Hospital. Huh. I couldn't help but smile as he talked proudly. I knew that hospital very well. I deeply felt the irony of fate. That hospital. Of course, I know it. Because. As the truth dawned on him, my ex-husband's face turned pale rapidly. My name is Nicole. My father runs a small clinic in town, and my mother works as the office manager there. My father, being a doctor, always seemed busy, sparing no time for sleep as he worked every day. As a child, I sometimes felt lonely due to the environment I was in, but my admiration and respect for my father were stronger than the loneliness. Someday, I want to become someone who can save many people, just like Dad. That was my catchphrase when I was little. As I grew up, I didn't become a doctor like my father, but I started working as a nurse. However, the job was more physically demanding than I had imagined, and I was exhausted every day. Can I keep up the good work as a nurse? Can I become a cool adult like my father? I was filled with anxiety and impatience every day. It was during such times that I met Ryan, who would later become my husband. Ryan was 5 years older than me and owned the cafe closest to the hospital where I worked. The beginning was when Ryan talked to me as I sat with a gloomy face during my lunch break, sighing with the same coffee in my hand every day. Hey, miss. I don't know what's going on, but drink this and cheer up a bit. What he offered me was a coffee with cute rabbit art. This. It's on the house. Come on, smile. Ryan smiled so brightly. Seeing him like that, I naturally smiled back. After that, I became very curious about Ryan, and I found myself watching him every time I went to the cafe. About 3 months after meeting Ryan, I took the initiative to ask for his contact information, and our relationship developed into dating. Then, 2 years later, he proposed. On the day Ryan came to ask for my hand in marriage, he said to my parents, "I will definitely make Nicole happy. So, please be at ease." He looked so reliable, and I fell for him all over again. My parents, seeing Ryan, said, "Thank you. Please take good care of Nicole. Both of you be happy. We're supporting you." With tears in their eyes, genuinely happy about our marriage. Then, on another day, we went to greet Ryan's parents. Ryan may seem unreliable at times, but please take care of him. If Ryan ever does anything wrong, come tell me right away. I'll scold him on your behalf. My in-laws were very easy to talk to and seemed kind, which was my first impression of them. After greetings with both families, we got married without a hitch. We lived happily as a couple, enjoying our days together. Of course, there were times of dissatisfaction or unpleasantness, but the parts that made me glad we were married and the happiness far outweighed those, so I felt our marriage was going well. Then, one day, a couple of years later, my husband made a suggestion. "Isn't it about time we make Nicole's dream come true?" My dream? Yeah, building our dream home, remember? What? I was surprised by my husband's sudden suggestion. You remembered. Of course. How could I forget? My dream of wanting to build a dream home was something I had only mentioned in passing while we were dating. So, I was surprised that he remembered, and above all, I was delighted that he hadn't forgotten such a trivial thing. Thank you, Ryan. After that, we went to real estate agencies and looked at various properties. Just looking at model homes made us feel excited. Wow, look. This kitchen is so cool. I pointed at a flat kitchen. I had always wanted to cook in such a spacious kitchen someday. Really, it is cool. It'd be fun to cook in a kitchen like this. Nicole, look at this bath. Isn't it amazing? It's so cool, and it's spacious enough to soak in every day. We were getting excited like kids. We continued to visit properties on our days off, talking about what kind of house we would like. It was a lot of fun. However, the discussion about building our dream home took an unexpected turn. One day, on our day off, my husband and I, having narrowed down our options, went to a housing exhibition. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law was there. Huh? Why is my mother-in-law here? I was puzzled by her presence and couldn't help but ask. My mother-in-law then made a surprising statement. Well, because I'll be living with you. If we're building a house, it's better to hear my opinion too, right? What? I couldn't believe my ears. When had this been decided? I hadn't heard a word about living together from my husband. I quietly confronted him so my mother-in-law wouldn't hear. Hey, what's going on, Ryan? Your mom said she's going to live with us, but I haven't heard anything about that. Oh. Didn't I mention it? What? You know, after my dad passed away last year? Mom looked so lonely, and I couldn't leave her by herself. Indeed, my father-in-law had passed away from a heart attack last year. It was very sudden. My in-laws were very close, and I always found it sweet how they went out holding hands every weekend. After my father-in-law's sudden death, my mother-in-law was deeply saddened, and both my husband and I were worried about her, but I had no idea they were considering living together. I understand not wanting to leave her alone, but still. I had reservations about living together and was anxious about whether we could get along well. Yet, I couldn't just ignore my mother-in-law. What to do? After a moment of silence, my husband, perhaps regretting not discussing it with me, murmured. I'm sorry. But, as you can see, Mom's happy about living together, so please forgive her. He looked towards my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was gleefully touring the housing exhibition, admiring the stylish kitchens and baths, saying, "Lovely." It had been a long time since I'd seen her so happy, and I couldn't help but smile too. Our relationship with my mother-in-law was good, and I began to think, well, if it makes her a bit happier, maybe it's okay. So, the house planning progressed, and after some time, our dream house was completed. At first, my mother-in-law would often stay in her room or tear up looking at photos of my father-in-law, but she seemed to enjoy the new house and gradually started spending more time in the living room. Initially, I was too cautious around my mother-in-law and felt exhausted, but over time, we found a comfortable distance, and I think both of us were able to enjoy our time together. However, my husband's careless comment would soon make the atmosphere a bit strange. "I think it's about time we had a kid." He suddenly said this during a meal with me and my mother-in-law. Both of us were surprised by his abrupt statement. I lightly kicked him under the table, signaling him to stop. "You don't have to say that now, do you?" But my insensitive husband didn't seem to catch my displeasure. "Well, it's true, right? We've been married for 2 years now. Right, Mom? You want to see your grandchild, don't you?" he said, turning to my mother-in-law with a foolish grin. "Oh, well. Of course." She glanced at me, answering hesitantly. I wanted children too, but there was no need to discuss it in front of my mother-in-law. Moreover, children are a blessing. It's not as if they come just because you want them. Well, I want them too, but they're a blessing, you know? We can't just expect things to work out. I calmly explained, but my husband, lacking any delicacy, said, It'll be fine. Let's start trying for a baby tomorrow." I sighed deeply in my heart. A few days after my husband's insensitive remark, my mother-in-law went into full-on grandchild-wanting mode, constantly asking about children. "How have you been feeling? Any nausea? Today's dinner is steak. It's supposed to be good for your energy. We splurged, so eat up and give it your all tonight." And so on. It turned out that lack of delicacy wasn't exclusive to my husband but my mother-in-law as well. Thus, my mother-in-law's pressuring for us to have a baby increased. However, getting pregnant can be difficult, and it's common not to conceive right away when you want to. Months passed without any signs of pregnancy for me. A year later, our relationship began to strain. "Why aren't you getting pregnant? Is there something wrong with you? Don't just blame me. It could be your fault too." Arguments became more frequent, fueled by such exchanges. My mother-in-law even joined in. "Nicole, maybe it's because you're always cold? Warm up more." It was too much to bear. Realizing this couldn't continue, I thought hard and then seriously suggested to my husband, "Hey, we've been stressing each other out about trying to conceive lately, right? So, how about we get some fertility treatments? Let's get tested." I was worried he might react poorly, but it seemed he had been thinking about it too. After some thought, he agreed. "Yeah, let's do that." The following week, we went to a fertility clinic for tests. A few days later, the test results showed that both of us were normal. The doctor advised us to check the ovulation days and try to time things accordingly. Having received the results, it was clear that I wasn't the cause, which was a relief. My mother-in-law and husband stopped blaming me persistently, and I was glad we went through with the testing. Additionally, the reduction in stress after receiving the results might have helped because, despite previously struggling to conceive, I found out I was pregnant 2 months later when my period was late. My mother-in-law was truly happy about my pregnancy, saying, "Leave the housework to me. Nicole, just relax and focus on giving birth to a healthy baby." She started helping around the house more than ever, returning to her kind self. But the change wasn't just with my mother-in-law. My husband's attitude changed too, but for the worse. At first, he was happy about the pregnancy, but gradually, he began to treat me coldly. Damn, we have the mortgage, and without your salary, we're strapped for cash. He complained more about money. As a nurse, I had a decent salary, but going on maternity leave reduced our income. I considered delaying maternity leave, but my mother-in-law advised, "You're doing physical work, so it's better to take maternity leave early to avoid any risks." I took her advice early, but my husband didn't seem to like it. "You could have worked longer. You took maternity leave too early. It couldn't be helped. Your mother was worried, and we can manage on your salary alone if we don't splurge. We shouldn't be struggling that much, right? Ah, women have it so good. Get pregnant and dump all the work on the man." He grumbled, irritable, and retreated to his room. When my morning sickness started, "Ugh, I feel sick." As I rushed to the bathroom, he even said, "Ah, not again, such a hassle. It makes me feel sick too." It seemed like getting pregnant was the only goal for my husband, and he had no interest in anything beyond that. Feeling immense stress from my husband's attitude, I often found myself crying when he was at work. Seeing me like this, my mother-in-law suggested, "Why don't you go back to your parents' house until you reach a stable period? Sometimes a little distance can make things better." My mother-in-law mentioned that during her pregnancy with Ryan, hormonal changes led to frequent arguments with my father-in-law. Returning to her parents' home to put some distance between them helped her find peace and approach childbirth with ease. Hearing such stories from my in-laws, who were usually so close, made me think that maybe a little distance was necessary right now. It was around the 4th month of my pregnancy when, encouraged by my mother-in-law, I decided to return to my parents' home. The distance created between my husband and me, along with the active support from my parents, finally allowed me to settle down and enjoy a peaceful maternity life. Being at home, just knowing my father, a doctor, was there made me feel secure. Meanwhile, taking advantage of my absence, my husband began to live more freely, coming home late from work or not coming home at all, as I was informed by my mother-in-law over the phone. I thought, how can he not even show his face once, knowing he has a child on the way? Since returning to my parents' house, my husband hadn't visited once. Apart from administrative matters, he didn't contact me at all. It was natural to feel angry at him. The small cracks in our relationship that had started before I returned home gradually widened. As I entered my final month of pregnancy, I asked my husband if he would be present at the birth. He quickly refused. "What? No way. I can't deal with blood." I was more astonished than angry at his response. When labor started, my parents took me to the hospital and I gave birth to a beautiful girl without him. A week later, upon our safe discharge, it was time to return to the house I shared with my husband and mother-in-law. The atmosphere at home felt slightly different. "Thank you so much for everything, Mother. Welcome back. Congratulations on your childbirth. I'll take care of the house, so you just relax," she said, seemingly sad. Wondering, I thanked her and sat on the sofa, holding my daughter. That night, past 10 p.m., my husband hadn't returned home. I had hoped to mend our relationship for our child's sake, but it seemed he had no such intentions. I'll be heading to bed now. Ryan's been busy with work, so it looks like he'll be late again tonight. You must be tired from the discharge, so go ahead and sleep first," my mother-in-law said, looking sadly resigned as she returned to her room. After midnight, I heard the front door open. "I'm home." He immediately went upstairs to the bedroom. "Welcome back. It's late. Our daughter is sleeping, so please be quiet." He glared at me. As noisy as ever, even after I've been away for so long. "Can't help it. She just fell asleep." "Humph. Well, I have something to tell you." He rummaged through his bag and handed me a piece of paper. "Sign this, please." Shocked, I looked at the paper. Wait a minute. What's going on? It was a divorce form. What do you mean, what's going on? Just look at this paper. I want a divorce from you. Why all of a sudden? It's not sudden. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Actually, I have a child with the woman I love. What? It was a complete shock. I was so surprised that I couldn't find the words and just stood there. Well, our marriage has been over for a long time, hasn't it? Indeed, our relationship had been strained for some time, but I never imagined he was cheating and had fathered a child. Wait a minute. I just gave birth to our daughter and got discharged from the hospital. I thought we would all be happy together. You've just been discharged from the hospital, so I was hesitant about bringing this up today, but things like this are better done sooner, right? Besides, my girlfriend has been nagging me to hurry up and divorce, he said with a grin. I could deeply feel that in the future he envisioned, there was no place for me and our child. Tears welled up in my eyes due to his utmost betrayal. What about your mother? How are you going to explain this to her? Oh, my mom? She agrees with the divorce. When I talked to her about my girlfriend, she said she's better than you. What? I swallowed hard. So, that's what it was. That explains the awkward reaction from my mother-in-law. That's the situation. So, please leave this house. It's under my name, after all. You should go back to your parents' house by tomorrow. I've already told my mom you'll be leaving tomorrow. What are you planning to do with this child? It's your child, you know. Ah, right. The child. But I already have another child now, so you raise this one. I'll get in touch about child support and compensation later. Can we end this talk now? I'm busy. Saying this, he began to hastily pack my belongings into trash bags and placed them by the entrance, indicating that I should leave. Thus, I was unilaterally presented with divorce, and we ended up divorcing. Later, through a lawyer, we discussed compensation with my husband. The total amount including child support and compensation came to about $80,000, but oddly, my husband wasn't fazed. It's fine with that amount. I'll pay in full, so just don't do anything to harm me and my affair partner, he said, laughing as if it was a joke. The fact that he could pay in full was astonishing. Where did he get such a large sum of money? But if it meant I no longer had to deal with this terrible man, it was for the best for me. Yes, I have no interest in you or your affair partner anymore. Also, I have one request. Never interfere with me and the child again. If you can't keep that, then I have my own plans. He frowned for a moment but then nodded. All right, it's settled. The following week, as promised, the money was transferred to my account. Thus, our marriage ended quite abruptly. 5 years have passed since then, and I turned 35. The daughter born at that time is now 5 years old and will be entering elementary school next year. After the divorce, I returned to live with my parents, and I'm still living with them. With the support of my family, I returned to work as a nurse after giving birth. Despite being busy every day, life is fulfilling thanks to my adorable daughter. One day, while I was at a large shopping mall, I unexpectedly ran into a certain person. Hey, isn't that Nicole? Long time no see. It was my ex-husband, the last person I wanted to see. Ugh. I inadvertently let out. What's with that ugh? Man, you've aged. Anyway, what have you been up to since our divorce? Must have been tough. Being a single mother is hard, he said, as if it was someone else's problem. I thought. You're the one who abandoned me and our child. I desperately suppressed the rising anger and sarcastically replied. Thanks to my parents' help, I didn't have any problems without you. Why are you pretending to be strong? Your dad's just a small-town doctor, right? And your mom's the office manager? Such parents couldn't have been of any help. Honestly, they must have been totally unreliable. He laughed mockingly. I felt my fists trembling with rage, wanting to punch this awful man, but I knew that wouldn't change the past. As I remained silent, flooded with unpleasant memories, he took advantage of my silence to start bragging about himself. After that, I married a female doctor. Pretty great, right? A doctor. Her dad's a real estate tycoon, and they're wealthy. So, her background. I finally understood why he could pay a substantial amount for compensation and child support during our divorce. Perhaps the father of his affair partner had covered the costs after finding out about their affair. I see. That must be nice for you. That's why I could pay off the money quickly. My affair partner being wealthy made my mom agree to the remarriage right away. So, that was it. Not only was I puzzled why my mother-in-law forgave his affair, but it seemed she was dazzled by the money as well. Anyway, you're just a part-timer now, right? My wife, a doctor, and you're worlds apart. She's skilled, 10 years younger than me, wealthy, and ensures a worry-free life. Isn't it great? Sorry for being the only happy one here. He laughed obnoxiously from a position of superiority. Oh. Which hospital does your wife work at? Why? Interested? Thompson Hospital. It's a famous general hospital that recently opened in this area. Even you, working as a part-time nurse, should have heard of it, right? Thompson Hospital. Huh. I couldn't help but smile as he bragged. I knew that hospital very well. Oh, Thompson Hospital. Your wife works at my father's hospital. Huh? But I thought your dad was just a small-town doctor. A few years ago, with some encouragement from acquaintances, he opened it. Remember my maiden name? Thompson. You mean your dad is the director? Yes, that's right. I had no idea. My wife transferred there recently, but I never thought such a big hospital's director would be your dad. But one thing puzzled me. You said your wife recently transferred to Thompson Hospital? Yeah. I wonder. Is your wife's name by any chance Amy Smith? How do you know my wife's name? Indeed. I had suspected it, but to think that my ex-husband's affair partner was Amy Smith. With Smith being a common surname in the US, I hadn't realized until now. Fate is indeed ironic. I had no lingering feelings or hatred towards my ex-husband anymore, but I thought it was time for some payback for the betrayal I experienced back then. I decided to reveal the truth about my ex-husband's wife, Amy Smith. I'm working at Thompson Hospital now, so I know about Mrs. Smith. She transferred here a year ago after causing a scandal with a married patient at another hospital. Scandal? With a married man. Oh, you didn't know? Sorry. It was quite a famous story at our hospital. Before transferring, she was caught having an affair with a patient in his early 20s, and the patient's wife stormed into the hospital yelling. They settled it with a settlement, so I guess you hadn't heard. No way. Amy had an affair? That can't be. My ex-husband's face turned pale rapidly, going completely white. Perhaps recalling certain incidents, he started mumbling to himself. But indeed, that time too. Now that I think about it, that time as well. Oh, and right after she transferred to us, I think. A high school student's girlfriend was causing a scene in the hospital room, claiming that Dr. Smith harassed my boyfriend during her shift. Hitting on a high school student is a bit problematic, don't you think? There are rumors she has a thing for young guys. What? Hold on. Affairs with married men? Harassing high school students? Preferences? Amy doesn't even. Well, it's not like her not doing anything with me matters anymore. I can't make sense of any of this. He seemed to be panicking. It was almost comical. Huh, you didn't know that? Maybe she doesn't bother with you because you're an old man. Or maybe because there are rumors she has plenty of boyfriends on the side, so she doesn't need you? It's exactly like someone I used to know. Both of you like younger partners. You're a perfect match. I laughed heartily. He was too shocked to speak, standing frozen in place. I decided to let him know about my current situation. I'm seeing someone now. He's a surgeon at Thompson Hospital, a doctor. My father approves of him. My daughter is about to start elementary school, she's such a sweet girl. He really cares for her, and I'm genuinely happy every day. It seems I'm the only one happy here, sorry about that. Biting his lip in frustration, he yelled. There's no way my wife is like that, but I ignored him and walked away. What goes around comes around. My ex-husband left me postpartum for a younger, beautiful doctor, but his wife turned out to be someone who only had affairs with younger men. If my ex-husband hadn't encountered me at the shopping center or spoken to me, he might have remained ignorant of his wife's secrets. Serves him right. 2 months later, although Amy didn't lose her medical license, she was transferred again due to multiple harassment allegations involving young patients. Upon investigation by the hospital, several testimonies emerged, such as, Dr. Smith touched my lower body. And she asked me to touch her chest. My father, the director, decided her transfer was necessary to prevent further harm to the hospital's reputation. After learning of Amy's transfer, which confirmed what I had said was true, my ex-husband confronted her. Acknowledging the affairs and harassment led to a massive argument between them, ultimately resulting in their divorce. Amy ended up raising the child born from their marriage, and my ex-husband moved back in with his mother. As for me, I continue to live happily surrounded by a caring partner, a lovely child, and supportive parents. What you do comes back to you. I plan to live honestly and uprightly from now on.